Just recently, Omega introduced their Speedmaster Calibre 321 in Canopus Gold. A beautiful watch, but it has a price tag of 80k euro. So it's a watch not for everyone. But fear not, there are some pretty cool alternatives out there. We have the Broad Arrow from 1998 and the Speedmaster 60th anniversary from 2017. The first one can be had for less than 1/16th of the price of the Canopus Gold. In 1997, Omega introduced a mission case. It was a white suitcase with 23 watches. 22 watches were mission patch models, so on the dial you could find a patch of Apollo 11, Apollo 13 and so on. And the 23rd watch was the Speedmaster Broad Arrow. It was also the first watch to use Calibre 1861. Before they used Calibre 861, and from then on Omega started to use Calibre 1861 for their Speedmaster collection, including for this Broad Arrow. There were 50 of these Speedmaster mission cases, 40 for the market and 10 were used for demonstration purposes and so on. And after that, so in 1998, Omega released this watch separately as well. It was on the market from 1998 till 2003 and it had some pretty cool Broad Arrow ingredients. This Speedmaster Broad Arrow is based on a 42mm Moonwatch case, so it's exactly the same mid case. What Omega did is they added a different dial. The color is also a little bit different, it's a bit more grayish. And of course they add the applied Omega logo. There's no professional on the dial and it has the Broad Arrow hands. The bezel is also different. It doesn't have the black aluminum insert, but it's a steel bezel with a tachymeter scale engraved. Then on the case back you'll find a very plain case back and there's only the Speedmaster medallion in the center with the hippocampus. The Speedmaster Broad Arrow was introduced with the name Speedmaster Replica. A bit of an unfortunate name, but at the time it probably made sense for Omega and later on they renamed it to Relaunch, the Relaunch edition. But basically it's the Speedmaster Broad Arrow. Interesting to know is that there is also a yellow gold version of this watch. It was a limited edition of 150 pieces and one of these 150 pieces can be seen on the wrist of Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. You don't see them for sale that often. There's one or two on Chrono 24 altogether and you'll find them for around 15 to 16,000 euros. This watch is priced much lower, of course. It's between 4,000 to 5,000 euros. Depending on the condition, but also whether there's a box and papers available and whether it comes on a bracelet or on the leather strap. So when this watch came out, it was available either on the leather strap or the bracelet. You could basically choose between them. The versions that came with the stainless steel bracelet, there are basically two different versions of those. One is with pushers on the clasp to release it, and one is without. The one without are before 2000 and the ones with are after 2000 till 2003. I put a leather strap on my own version here. I have it with steel bracelet with the release buttons, but I think it's nicer on the leather strap because I really don't like the metal bracelet from that period. So I put on a generic leather strap on this watch. What you need to take care of when you're looking for these watches is ask for close-ups of the dial, because on some of the pieces I've noticed that the applied Omega logo has a little bit of corrosion, meaning there has been moisture inside the case. So you want to be aware of that. Otherwise, it's just a normal Speedmaster. It can be serviced everywhere. Just take care of the dial, because if the applied logo is corroded, then you basically need a new dial. What I like about this version is that it is a bit more dynamic than the regular Moonwatch. The regular Moonwatch with its white baton hands, it's very monochrome. And this watch, although it's only steel and black as well, there's a little bit more, it's a little bit more dynamic because of the steel hands and the steel bezel, especially the steel hands. When they catch sunlight, it reflects, and yeah, the watch is just a bit more alive, so to speak. What's different about this watch compared to the Canopus Gold version that Omega released recently is that it's an asymmetrical case, so it's a 42mm case and not a straight lock case. At the time, in 97, 98, Omega was not that far as they are today when doing re-editions or limited editions. They just used what they had. So they just used the 42mm Moonwatch case and redesigned it a little bit to become a Broad Arrow watch. Very different from the 2017 model that I have here for the 60th anniversary. In 2017, Omega introduced the trilogy set of the Seamaster 300, the Railmaster and the Speedmaster Broad Arrow. It was 60 years ago then that Omega introduced these watches as their first professional watches, meaning the Railmaster was for scientists and people that were working in environments where there was a lot of magnetism, the Seamaster 300 for divers, and the Speedmaster for as well scientists as sports people to time events. The trilogy set was a limited edition of 557 sets of all three watches, but Omega also released the watches separately, limited to 3,557 pieces. For this Speedmaster, very interesting is that Omega used tomography. So they scanned the watch for its dimensions, so it has the same dimensions as the original watch from 1957. So this Broad Arrow from 2017, the case, the bezel, the pushers, the crown, they are exactly the same size as the original CK 2915 from 57. It also means that it's exactly the same watch basically as the Canopus Gold one that was released recently, although this one is in steel, and of course it doesn't have caliber 321 but caliber 1861. The case back of the watch shows the Omega logo and Speedmaster word as well as the hippocampus. On the original one from 1957, that was a little bit different. It only showed Speedmaster and later on the hippocampus came as well. On the Canopus Gold one, of course, there was a display back showing the caliber 32 movement. Well, in this watch is no caliber 32 movement, so there's no point, but in all other regards is exactly the same watch. In 2017, when this watch came, it was released on a stainless steel bracelet. As you can see, this is not the original bracelet that came with the watch. I changed the bracelet to the one from the caliber 321 in stainless steel or at white, because I feel that this bracelet is much more similar to the original one from 1957. The links are much thinner, the clasp is not as bulky as the one from 2017, and it just fits the watch better. The only thing is that there's a little bit of a gap above the end link and the case, so there's not a 100% fit. But in the end, I think the original one from 1957, those were quite rattly as well. So I feel that for this watch, I think it's a perfect fit. The bracelet can be ordered separately and comes at around 700 euros. On the dial, some people complained about the faux patina or the discolored indexes and the loom on the hands. But in the end, I think it looks kind of neat. It gives it a bit of a vintage look. The ones on the Canopus one were much whiter because it was Superluminova inside a white gold hour marker. But here they are printed, and yes, they do have a bit of faux patina, but to me it's not disturbing at all. The hour markers on the Add White are a bit whiter, but I think it fits the watch. For pricing, this watch when it came out, it was around 6,500 euros. The going prices today, because it has been discontinued, they're all sold out. You'll be able to find them on Chrono24, for example, between 7,500 and 9,000 euros, based on the condition of the watch and whether everything is complete. And also take into account that this bracelet that I've put on here does not come with the watch. It's a separate order. It's the bracelet as set from the Add White and is around 700 euros. So if you want to have it like this, you have to add a few hundred euros on top. So the 80K watch that we've shown to you in a previous video and that Omega released recently in Canopus Gold is a beautiful and stunning watch, but it's not for everyone. And I think a lot of the comments about the price were also based on the fact that people were prepared to buy a new Speedmaster on that first Tuesday of the year, and then they had the credit cards ready, and then they see a watch that is basically unobtainable, only for the lucky few. But in my opinion, that watch was done by Omega to show what they can do. So everything has been put in there. The white gold alloy, the onyx dial, the Grand Feu bezel, and the caliber 321 movement, of course, as well as the sapphire stone set in the crystal. But if you want to have a bit more of a practical watch that comes close to the original Broad Arrow from '57, I think here are two very nice alternatives. One is the one from 2017, that is actually very close to the original from '57, except for the movement. The other one is a bit of a funky one or odd one that is based on a regular moon watch that has some ingredients of the Broad Arrow from '57. There's a huge price difference, so if your budget allows, I think this is the way to go. On the other hand, this is really a funny watch. I really like it. I got it a few years ago and I find myself wearing it quite often, and it's also a very loved watch among the Fratello editors. A couple of our guys have one. And yeah, you can find it between 4,000 and 5,000 euro as said, and that's actually less than a normal moon watch. So I think this is a lot of bang for the buck. If you want to have something that is very close to the original, and some people might even ask you, hey, is that an original one or the remake? Then this is the one. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button.